Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 19th day of February 2021. I'm Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic here, we've got some yellow areas there indicating advisories. In the case of the Arctic coast, eastern Multimedia coast up there, that's a wind chill advisory, which is out until 6 a.m. Monday, so a wind chill kind of weekend for the eastern Multimedia coast up there. All weekend wind chill advisory out for wind chills to 55 degrees below zero at times, with winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour with possible higher gusts. And then for the southwest coast, Kuskokwim Delta, Bethel area, Nunivak Island into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, Aniak there, that's a wind chill advisory also, which is in effect for tonight until noon Sunday. So tonight through tomorrow night until noontime Sunday, and that's for wind chills to 45 degrees below zero with winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour. And then for the upper Tanana Valley there, 40-mile country into the Alaska Range, that's a winter weather advisory, which is out until sometime early this evening, anywhere from 6 to 9 p.m. or the ending times there. Up over the eastern Alaska Range ends at 9 p.m. and for the other areas ends at 6 p.m. and that's for blowing snow with the gusty winds and that reducing visibilities, but that'll be improving quite a bit here later this evening. And that's it for the watches, warnings, and advisories. Just those three areas with the advisories out for the state. Satellite imagery, pretty good system moved up off the north coast of the Panhandle today, pulling up into the actually into northwest Canada this afternoon, and a pretty good trough swinging across the Panhandle there on the south side of that system, and then cold high pressure building into the northwest interior, or the west central interior there, and the gradient kicking the winds up over the southeast interior areas as well as along the North Gulf Coast from the low itself, with winds of anywhere from 35 to 55 miles per hour in gusts. And then lighter winds, though, over the western interior. Eastern Arctic coast seeing some gusty winds, 30 to 40 miles per hour, with AKwx seeing gusts, let's see, as high as 40 miles an hour today, with, of course, wind chills running anywhere from 50 to 55 below up there. And then lighter winds back to the west. There was also some areas of flurries and light snow. You can see the clouds kind of dropping southward. Another batch about to move in this evening and tonight there from the Arctic onto the Arctic coast and into the North Slope. Otherwise, out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, band of clouds looks more impressive down over the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula area there. And that produced some gusty winds as well with that, but precipitation amounts not all that heavy. Anywhere from 4/10 of an inch falling at Dutch Harbor in Unalaska to 3/10 of an inch at Akun Island, while False Pass had about 2/10 of an inch of precipitation all in the last 12 hours, and that falling in the form of rain or snow, and mostly rain this afternoon in those areas. Pribilof Island seeing some light wet snow, temperatures in the lower to mid 30s now at St. George Island, with winds gusting as high as 30 to 40 miles an hour, and then the Alaska Peninsula seeing gusts, Cold Bay specifically, gusts to 45 miles an hour with that system, and lighter winds in along the coast there. Otherwise, about 1 to 2 inches of snow fell across Copper River Basin in areas during the day today, and even light snow continuing to fall in the Fairbanks area into the latter part of the afternoon, light snow. Visibility is running 2 to 3 miles there in light snow. So they probably picked up maybe anywhere from a half inch to a couple inches there in some areas, especially off to the east and northeast, as well as into the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, a break coming in as colder high pressure following the trough as it moves out ahead of the system coming in from the west there will bring some colder air back into central and southern Alaska tonight into tomorrow. You can see the high pressure center there over the western interior, and then the low pulling into Canada, northwest Canada there over the northern Panhandle, and that gradient pretty tight, as I mentioned. Winds Seward today gusting 50 or 45 miles an hour, with gusts of 55 miles an hour in Passage Canal, 55 miles an hour out of the west. Northerlies for the Seward area. Those coming down now as the gradient starts to relax. And Cape Spencer seeing gusts as that low pulled northward off the coast of 50 let's see, they had gusts to 57 miles per hour, while Juneau earlier today had a peak gust of 52 miles an hour, and then Cape Decision 51 miles an hour farther to the south there. And AKwx had the heaviest rainfall amount in the last 12 hours of 7/10 of an inch of rain falling there, with that active trough swinging in from the west-southwest, and anywhere about 4/10 of an inch at Sitka to only 2/10 of an inch of rain at Seward, and about a third of an inch, say, at Juneau there. So more of a wind than rain producer. The wind's a little more impressive than the rainfall amounts. Anyway, rain into the Alaska Peninsula, as I mentioned there, mixture for the Pribilof Islands, and rain and snow showers central and western Aleutians. Something of a break there for Adak and Atka in toward Nikolsky. It looks like precipitation should end, and then the areas of light snow up along the north slope and the Arctic coast there, with the gusty winds with that low center off the coast, again kicking 30 to 40 miles an hour from Dead Horse over to Kaktovik. And then the snow over the eastern interior tapering off this evening, just about ends, maybe lingering around or just north of the Eagle area, flurries possibly, and also over the southeast Copper River Basin to the eastern North Gulf Coast. That area a little slower to end there because of the flow becoming more east and southeast there, instead of continuing to push it off to the east. And then southwest flow keeps it wet and unsettled, with snow at the higher elevations, with the Panhandle, rain down towards sea level, especially along the south coast into toward Dixon Entrance. But dry, cold over the interior, and variable clouds for the Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula area. Increasing moisture, rain and snow, Kodiak Islands. That system pushes up from the south. And then for Saturday, look for wet conditions for the Panhandle, cold over the interior and dry. Increasing chance of snow right along the North Gulf Coast. And then Copper River Basin, better chance of snow overspreading the area into the eastern Tanana Valley areas, Northway Toke, possibly up to Eagle. Light snow and flurries for the Arctic coast, and wind and rain for the Panhandle. Lows tonight, upper 20s to mid 30s down that way, 28 to 25 below for the Copper River Basin, 25 to 45 below up over the central interior, mid 20s below zero for the Arctic coast, and upper 20s for the Pribilos. Highs for tomorrow near zero, Copper River Basin, mid 30s to lower 40s for the southeast coast, and single numbers in teens, south central Alaska. Staying below zero north of the Alaska Range of the Arctic coast, and St. Lawrence Island also below zero, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Low Sunday morning, below zero, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Susitna Valley, 20-25 below Copper River Basin. Mild for the Panhandle, well below zero north of the Alaska Range, even through the afternoon hours.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic for Saturday morning, IFR, western Arctic coast there. Across the central north slope into the eastern north slope there along the Brooks Range, the north side of the Brooks Range, marginal VFR south of the mountains there, in across Kotzebue Sound and the north coast of the Seward Peninsula, right into the Selawik area. Kobuk Valley, mostly VFR, and as well as all of the interior, except some marginal VFR still lingering there over the eastern interior, Eagle, and northward up toward Old Crow. And then over the eastern southeastern Copper River Basin, that area extends across all of the Panhandle. VFR, though, for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound to start, but moisture is going to be rapidly increasing from south to north. So IFR, Kodiak Island, and Alaska Peninsula marginal, and not too bad out over the Bering Sea, mostly marginal VFR with some areas of IFR and VFR thrown in. Northern Bering Sea, VFR, including St. Lawrence and Nunavut Islands. And then for the afternoon, marginal VFR spreading up to southern Prince William Sound, may even be a little farther north than that toward evening, early evening, or late in the day, might even be across Prince William Sound, possibly, and into the southern Kenai Peninsula. It's kind of iffy right now, but definitely an increase in the moisture along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound in the afternoon and evening Saturday. Marginal VFR south of the Alaska Range, into the Kobuk, Koyukuk, Upper Yukon Valley, and otherwise VFR, southern interior, northern Bering Sea. Marginal VFR, Aleutians, Bering Sea, IFR, Alaska Peninsula, and all of Kodiak Island, and the Panhandle, which stays IFR throughout the night into Sunday morning there, from all the way up to Yakutat from Dixon Entrance, and then a band across the Gulf there to Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, Shelikof Strait area, and IFR for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, marginal VFR, North Slope, and the western central Arctic coast, and VFR there for the northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, and a good portion of the southwest coast and beyond. Pick up the marginal stuff for the Pribilofs, central Aleutians, Fox Islands, and then a band of VFR there, Amchitka and Kiska Islands, and also Shumianat too. But then the next batch of IFR with the front comes into the western Aleutians, pushing up toward Adak in the afternoon Sunday. Marginal for the Pribilofs, and some marginal VFR now with a weak disturbance for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast in along the north side of the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound to Selawik. IFR central eastern Beaufort Sea coast. IFR southeastern Copper River Basin, almost the eastern Copper River Basin, with the eastern Alaska Range cutting it off there. Marginal VFR across Prince William Sound, and IFR northern 2/3 of the Panhandle with marginal VFR for Kodiak Island. Anatuvik, marginal tomorrow, same forecast for Adigan, marginal VFR in either approach and through the pass. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, but possibly becoming marginal in the eastern entrance for Lake Clark in the afternoon, depending on how fast that moisture comes northward. And for Rainy, stays VFR the entire day. A good flying day for Windy in the eastern Alaska range as well, with Isabel and Mentasta both VFR, as well as Tanita, good VFR. And Portage, wide open VFR flying, but watch out for an increase in the moisture, possibly late in the day on the eastern entrance, but right now it should be stay VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, becoming IFR. And for the freezing levels at the surface there, near the Pribilofs, and then down to the Alaska Peninsula, south of Kodiak Island, up to about Cape Yakataga, and then along and then cutting across the Panhandle, 2,000 feet, coming back up to the Alaska Peninsula and Sitkinak there on south end of Kodiak Island. Icing, increasing moisture again, possibly getting into Prince William Sound. Just look for an increasing threat, maybe, mostly along the Gulf of Alaska, mostly over the southern Panhandle, considerable moderate areas of there. And then looks like that other area staying south of Kodiak Island with just slight threat of some light icing for the Aleutians, central and eastern Alaska Peninsula. And for the jet stream, 145 to 70 knot west-southwesterlies, starting to bulge a little northward there, but not getting that far north, although increasing over the Panhandle, 9,000 feet. Looks like 70 knots there eastern in western Canada, and then the stronger winds staying south of the area, and at 3,000 feet, 40 to 55 knot winds there, Gulf of Alaska. At the 55 knot winds over the southern Panhandle, Dixon entrance, and 40 to 45 knots or 40 to 50 knots just along and south of the Aleutians. And turbulence-wise, look for a moderate chop for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Yakutat down to the north coast of the Panhandle, the southern southeast coast, Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay, and along the Alaska Peninsula. Again, moderate chop below 5,000 feet. After the break, I'll be back with
When you think of a national park, you probably envision wide open natural spaces undisturbed by human activity. There are indeed such places, but even in some of the most remote areas of a place like Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, the mark of man is present. Marine debris is a menace to the farthest reaches of our globe, and even designated national park lands are not immune. In the summer of 2009, the Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance, a grassroots conservation organization based in Seward, Alaska, decided to do something about the marine debris fouling the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park. Marine debris coordinator Tim Johnson had first-hand experience with the issue.
The summer before, my wife and I, Michelle, had done a paddle from Seward, sea kayak paddle from Seward to Homer. Really, our eyes were open to some areas that we didn't realize there was so much accumulation. It was very deceiving up front. You couldn't really get a feel for the extent and impact of it. You've got this nice high tide line that's quite pristine, and you really don't get a picture for the impact, the amount of debris in that area until you get behind those storm berms. You get back into the lagoons and the vegetation around those lagoons. And then you see the absolute extent back into that veg and how intertwined and enmeshed these decades of trash deposition. So we were just appalled by that and said we got to get something together on a larger scale.
The Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance is a local nonprofit community organization, and they have been instrumental in helping the Park Service obtain funding to to get boats, larger boats to help move the debris, and they get volunteer labor and organize the work trips. And so it's really a partnership between the Park Service and the community to help get out and really get a project done that in and of itself any one group couldn't do on their own.
Most of that trash was baggable. However, there were large items, huge, piles of hauser line, for example, that we just had to hoist up onto the boat.
The volunteers didn't just bag, haul, and hoist the garbage, but also carefully recorded what types of debris were collected.
In many ways, the debris itself is a resource. Archaeologists use middens, the trash heaps, as a way of analyzing past cultures. And in one sense, marine debris is a form of a midden. It's a trash heap that left for the future would be something that people could use to analyze our culture. It may not say the best things about our culture or everything that we want, but we need to be able to document what we've done so that we can preserve that legacy, make sure that we as a society don't forget what we've been doing.
We had two larger categories of marine debris that we picked up. Commercial fishing means like, say, gill nets, large hauser lines, anything that would be associated with more of a commercial fishing scale. And then the second category was more recreational fishing and household, which would be general plastics, things like that. So we had about a 75% of the commercial fishing marine debris element, and about 25% of the recreational and household further out the bay. And we had the exact opposite the closer we got to Seward. Within the bay, it was about 25% commercial fishing versus 75% recreational fishing and household.
The trash is not just unsightly for park visitors, but also poses threats to wildlife and marine habitat.
Really one of the larger issues now that you go to this plastic that can really get into the food web and affect the food web differently than something like glass.
These substances, for instance, all these polystyrene blocks that are breaking down into all these little crumbly bits are further breaking down on a microscopic level, and how much of an impact that has, in this ecosystem is yet to be determined, but I think it's got pretty high potential.
Well known that sea turtles will eat plastic bags floating in the water. They look like jellyfish to a sea turtle, and obviously a plastic bag doesn't go well in the digestive system of a turtle. Albatross will see small pieces of plastic floating on the surface and think they're small fish and other food sources and eat that in their stomachs, especially in some of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. They'll find dead albatross that have starved to death with a full stomach, and it's full of pieces of plastic.
We're affecting our local areas this way, but we need to be thinking about it from more of a state and global international scale. And most importantly, to try and focus on prevention of it coming in the first place. Because we're just going to see this continuing, to build up on our beaches unless we're able to get a little bit more of an approach on prevention on the front end.
Marine debris is really a global problem, in all the oceans, and there are many different sources. Global shipping is one. Fishing debris from commercial fishing, recreational boating activity, activity on land, stuff blowing off land, washing down streams, people just throwing stuff on the shore.
Though the problem can seem overwhelming, Johnson remains upbeat about making a positive difference.
No, you gotta start locally. You gotta take control of what you can do, and make something with that, and try and move on from there.
Overall, more than 9 tons of debris was removed from the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park and transported back to Seward to be deposited in a landfill.
People gave a lot to the project in order to make it happen. That was awesome. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, being able to put that large of a group of volunteers together, dedicated volunteers to put that much effort and give that much time and pull all the different agencies together to see it all happen was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah, very fulfilling experience.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Ice a little more beaten up than it was earlier in the week there for Bristol Bay. Some thin areas there, southwest Togiak Bay. And Cook Inlet, ice concentrations, of course, vary greatly with the tides there, with a fair amount south of the Forelands, but not too far to the south. Minimal ice in Kamishak Bay. Out in the Bering Sea there, St. Matthew Island still right on the edge there of the heavier ice pack extending to the north. And for coastal water forecasts for tomorrow, Saturday, south coast, south winds 30 knots, seas 16 to 17 feet. Otherwise, for the north coast, east-southeast 20 to 25 knots. Lynn Canal, southerlies 20 knots. Gale force gusts to 30 knots with 4-foot seas. Small craft advisories for Stevens Passage, southeast winds 25 knots. Gale warnings for Clarence Strait, southerlies 35 knots with 7-foot seas. And for Sunday, gales for the most of the coastline there, 35 knots on the central coast, with seas up to 30 feet, and west 40 knots there on the south coast. 30 knots out of the west on the north coast with 25-foot seas. Lynn Canal, south 25, small craft advisories for all of the central and all of the inside waters, with Stevens Passage at 30 knots from the south, and Clarence Strait, southwest 25 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Prince William Sound, Saturday, not too bad, northeast at about 20 with 3-foot seas, and Cook Inlet, northeast 15. But gale warning, southern Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, into Kamishak Bay, northeast winds 35 knots, 12 to 14-foot seas. Northeast 30 for the Barren Islands, and the North Gulf Coast, east-northeast 25 knots for small craft advisories with 6 to 7-foot seas. And for Sunday, much lighter winds, Prince William Sound, north at 10 with 2-foot seas, same for northern Cook Inlet. Southern Cook Inlet coming down quite a bit from tomorrow's values at 15 knots from the north. Kamishak Bay, west 30 knots. Gale warnings for the Barren Islands, west 35 knots, 16-foot seas, and the North Gulf Coast, west-northwest 30 knots with seas just under 20 feet. Kodiak Island, northeast 30 knots, 10-foot seas. Shelikof Strait, gale warnings, northeast 35 knots. And then northeast 25 knots, Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, and small craft advisories also for Bristol Bay. Pretty stiff northeast breeze there at 30 knots with 7-foot seas. And the Bering Sea side, the Pacific side, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, south shore there, northwest 30 knots, 18-foot seas. And then for Sunday, Alaska Peninsula, westerlies 25 to 30 knots with 8 to 16-foot seas. Bristol Bay, northwest 25, west 25 for Shelikof Strait. And from Castle Cape to Sitkinak up the east side of Kodiak Island, west winds 30 knots, seas just over 20 feet. Fox Islands tomorrow, southwest 15 to 20 knots from Unmak Island. Unalaska Island, west-northwest 15 to 25. Adak south to southwest 20 to 30 knots. And then 15 knots from Kiska to Shemya. And for Sunday, small craft advisory, south winds 30 knots from Shemya to Adak, actually. And then Atka, more of a south to southwest 20 to 30 knot wind. And Unalaska Island, westerlies 15 to 25 knots, 20 to 25 knots from the southwest from Mac Island. Southwest coast, northeast 20 to 30 knots, northeast 20 for the Pribilofs and St. Lawrence Island, 25 knots out of the northeast for St. Matthew Island. And then for Sunday, north 20, St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories along the Kuskokwim Delta coast, northwest 25 knots, light winds for the Pribilofs, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light westerlies tomorrow, light northerlies for the central and west side, all the way to Cape Thompson, Cape Thompson to Wales, north 15. And for Sunday, Wales to Cape Thompson, north 20 knots, and then swinging around to the northwest at 20 from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, western Arctic coast, western and central Arctic coast, west winds 20 knots. Brisk wind advisories for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast with 25 to 30 knot winds, strongest toward demarcation point. And for tonight, weak trough there kind of coming down out of the Arctic there, bringing areas of light snow or flurries with fog from the eastern Beaufort Sea coast across the north slope into the western Brooks Range along mountains there, trailing back to the far western Arctic coast. Nothing significant expected. Clearing and cold over the interior with drying out here continuing for southern Alaska. Chance of snow lingers eastern North Gulf Coast, and rain or snow for the Panhandle and southwest flow. And then for Saturday, a low keeps it unsettled over the central Aleutians, band of snow over the north central Bering Sea, which goes right across the Pribilofs. Low pressure brings snow into Bristol Bay, rain and snow Kodiak Island, and southwest milder flow for the Panhandle for mostly rain, warming a little bit into Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.